And welcome back to the Colour Cave. It's Jem here. Today we are going to have a nice relaxing colouring chat in Dromenvanger, and this was a page that I tested out some of the Arteza 120 set on, and a few of you made noises about wanting to see the page finished. So I think we'll have this as an ongoing sort of mini series for the next little while, and we can see what we can do with it. Just before we get started, I want to address the elephant in the room. I just want to say that I hope that all of you are well and keeping yourselves safe with everything that's going on. I am not going to talk about coronavirus in these videos because we are all pretty much sick of it, and I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. What I will say is be kind and do your best to look after the people round about you, and just keep your eyes open, and you know, especially for people that are maybe immunocompromised, and also for maybe your elderly neighbours, and just be awesome humans that I know that you are. If you're in the position where you're struggling for things, don't be scared to ask for help, because there are lots of kind souls out there, and you guys that watch this have proven that to me, that there's still some good in humanity out there. So let's just work together and try and get through this. Anyway, enough of that. As I say, I'll not be mentioning it now. Let's just get down to some colouring. So I was kind of guddling away with this page, so my thinking is that I will do this page, because it is a double spread. If we just, you know, look at the two together, they do join together. So what I think I'll do is I'll do this page, you know, filming it and complete it, and then the second half I'll probably colour in my own time, but I will post the full spread once it's finished over on my Instagram account. If you don't follow me on Instagram, my handle will be at the end card, so you can pick that up there. So in the last video I coloured in one of these sort of mushroom cups, heads, tops, whatever you want to call them. So all I've done since then is the one next to it, and I've used exactly the same pencils. So that's just to sort of move us on a little bit, because there is an awful lot going on in this picture. So I have these pencils here now. I'm going to shout them out, because what I want to do next before I change to other pencils is these sort of mid frills. I'm imagining in my head that they're very similar to these, so we're going to use the same pencils for that. So as I said, we are on the Arteza 120 set, and the colours here, I'll just shout them out to you just now, and if there's any additions I will let you know as we go along. So we have, for the tops of the mushrooms, we have Sky Blue, which is 8056, and there we go. The next pencil we have is Deep Teal, which is A143. Somebody asked me in a recent video why I do this, and there are quite a lot of people who perhaps don't have English as a first language. We have Prussian Blue, A142, and especially with me not having a more mainstream accent on YouTube, you know, like an American accent, some people struggle to understand what I'm saying. So if I show the pencil colours, they can then pick them out for themselves and not have any issues. So that's why I do that, if anybody's wondering. For these sort of brown colours, I've ended up with a huge mishmash of pencils. And I kind of added things and took things away as I went last time. So we've got Camel, which is A110, and that's what I used for the base colour. Raw Umber, A132. Gold, which is A122. Hazelnut Brown, A060. That one's really easy to read because it's a nice dark pencil. And for the kind of shadow areas, I've used this Ash Black, and I did use this sparingly, and that is A153. And a last layer to sort of warm it up was the turmeric pencil, which is A077, and I used that as almost like a top coat, or I wanted to say a burnishing coat, but I haven't actually burnished, but I just kind of went over all of it with that. So that's kind of what we've been doing up till now, and as I say, we're going to use these same colours now, and we're going to fill out these frills, and then we'll move on to something else. So I'll get zoomed in a little bit. There we go, so that we can see what's going on. So in terms of the blue here, there's not much room for manoeuvre. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that my pencils are really, really sharp. So I want a really pointy point on them, because we've got some pretty tight areas here to get into. So as usual, start with my lightest colour and just pick out the areas where the blue is going to go. I'll just work my way around here. So Mama Jem is still with us. She's staying with us for a few weeks. She had knee surgery recently. She had a replacement knee, or a new knee as we call it. And just with everything that's going on, when she came up, she was going to come up for a visit anyway, but we decided it would be best if she stayed up here. Obviously, just being fresh out of surgery, her immune system isn't ideal. So she's been a lodger. She's a very helpful lodger though. She's been making dinner, which is lovely because I have to make dinner every night. And she's also been doing some dishes as well. So she's a helpful lodger. She's a lot more mobile than I thought she would be. And the other day it was really nice outside and she decided that she wanted to go out. I think she's getting a bit cabin feverish, which I can understand. So she decided to take Woo for a walk. So I took the collies out into, we've got an empty field behind the house, and I normally take out a tennis ball and one of these launchers, like I call them the chucker, the big plastic kind of catapult things, and it lets the dogs run. And collies, I mean, you can walk collies for hours and they won't get tired, but if you run them, that really, takes the wind out of them. So I said to her, I was like, well, why don't you take Woo and walk down the farm track, out towards the road, and I'll take the big dogs into the field. So that's what we did. So I let them get a head start so that Pip and Jock weren't confused, who they were going with. And I was walking down to take the big dogs down, and here's Mum with the little Jack Russell, and they're just toddling down the road, the two of them, like two geriatrics together. But I think they had a good time, so it's nice for Mum to get out and start walking now, because she needs to exercise and keep her knee freed up. And they do tell you that once you've had it done, you've got to keep moving, because it's when you stay still for too long, that's when you stiffen up. Mum says herself she gets sore if she sits for too long. So mutually beneficial. So just thinking about the colour placement here, I've kind of had the idea that the light source, if I just come up here, that the light source is coming, maybe sort of this kind of angle. So from above, but in front, like maybe from where the camera is now. But because these are underneath, I'm thinking that the lighter areas might be a lot lighter because of the tilt, and these darker bits might be really, really dark. So I think I might want to have quite, not a harsh line, but there might be quite an obvious divide between the darker parts and the lighter parts. So I've got this Prussian blue here. We'll pop this in. And then I've got the teal. I wondered what the noise was there. My bread maker's on and it's just started rumbling about. I can hear it floating through from the kitchen. I'm attempting a granary loaf. I've never made one in the bread maker before, so this is going to be an interesting experiment. I have no idea if it's going to turn out or not, but I have found that using the bread maker, it's a bit of trial and error, and what works for one brand of bread maker doesn't necessarily work for another, so still kind of finding my feet with it. I tried a brown loaf last week, and honestly I could have filled in all the holes in the walls in this house with it. It was absolutely solid, and that was following a supposedly tried and tested recipe, and I was like, nope, never mind. We still ate it though, but we didn't like make sandwiches with it or anything. It just wasn't fit for that. But we toasted it and we dipped it in soup and one thing and another, so it didn't go to waste. But I knew the second I lifted the pan out the bread maker, because it weighed a ton. I was like, oh no. This is actually quite complicated, this little ridge, because it's not just, a flat semicircle. It kind of goes in and out. There's lots of nooks and crannies. So I'm trying to think about that as I go. And I'm just jumping between these three pencils and trying to pick out the areas where, where the creases are. Obviously that's going to be a little bit darker, and then pick out the areas that might be lighter. This is just not that straightforward. Now this part here I imagine would be quite light. So I'm just going to pop another layer of this sky blue down. I'm wondering if I might go to, I've got peacock blue, but I think it's actually too close to the sky blue to make a difference. So we'll try that. So that is A008. Because I don't want this to be too wishy-washy, I don't want too much of the white showing through in the paper, because I wanted to keep these reasonably vibrant. But let's try with the peacock, maybe down at this edge here. Oh goodness, This is classic Arteza where we've half sharpened your pencils for you. So it's got a point on it but it's flat at the top. It's absolutely no use to anybody. I wish they wouldn't do that. I've kind of got a thing about that. Right, let's try this peacock on top here. Yeah, that's not bad. I don't even know if it's such a subtle difference. I don't even know if you guys will be able to register that. Also, it's 20 past 9 in the morning, so I have tea. Much needed at this time of the day. It's actually a really horrible day here. We've had a few dry days, which is really nice because things were getting a bit soggy for a while there. And the weather's kind of settled down a bit after all the snow and everything. And we actually, Mum and I sat out on a chair outside the sunroom door. You guys have seen where the sunroom is. And it was lovely, but it lasted about 15 minutes and then this big grey cloud came over. And when the sun went in behind the clouds, it was freezing. And today's one of those days. I always say this is a winter day masquerading as spring. You think, oh, look, all the little flowers are coming out, and you get a little peak of sun, and then all of a sudden it's like -1. Oh no. So I'm not enamoured with the weather today at all. It was trying to snow first thing this morning, and do you know that way? I just looked up at the sky, and Mr. Jem's looking at me and he says, "You've got to be kidding," and I'm like, "I'm not joking, it's trying to snow." It's like, oh, the despair. But it didn't come to anything, thankfully. But it is really cold. But it's dropping cold at night still, although it's quite pleasant during the day. And we're getting up, obviously in Celsius, we're getting up to maybe 7 or 8 degrees during the day now, which is a vast improvement on the -3s that we've been having. But at night time, it's still freezing, and you get up in the morning and there's a bit of frost. But that'll pass. My daffodils haven't been brave enough to come out now. They've poked up out the ground, but they're not flowering. They're not stupid. They know. Okay, there we go. I can't decide whether this looks too patchy. This is something, I do keep a note of the pencils I use as I go along until I've finished a piece when I'm doing something complicated like this. I may come back to this once I've coloured the rest of it. You know, I may find it's too insipid. Insipid, that's a good word for an early morning. So I'm going to put this peacock down and I'm going to go back to the teal because again I think we're going to be much darker in here. And I'll just jump between the sky blue. Now when we come round this curve here, I'm pretty sure that's going to be darker. I'll try and blend this together. And then I'll get teal and the Prussian blue around this little corner here too, that'll be alright. It's really nice to be doing a colouring chat. I feel as if we haven't done one for ages. And when I looked back, the last one we did was when I was finishing off my last Johanna Basford page, and that was before we moved. You know, that was in the old cave. That was the last time we've done one of these, so we're long overdue. I do try and juggle, you know, I do try and split the videos between colouring and all the rest of the silly things that I do, like trypan pastels and colouring pages and painting and things, but I just realised that we hadn't actually done a colouring chat for a little while. Okay, yeah, I think I'm going to leave that at that. I'll move over and do the other one now. Again, there's not much room for manoeuvre here, and I'm thinking that this top part is going to be quite dark. I absolutely love this book, and I'm at the stage where I don't find things like this intimidating, but I didn't realise just how detailed Tomislav's books are until I started colouring, and there's like so many little bits. But I love this kind of thing. Most of you'll know I like to colour in Kirby Rosanna's books as well, and they are, you know, they're just insane. But this is actually very nice. I have been chipping away at my next Johanna Basford page. I really don't have a lot of time in my hands just now for arting in my spare time, you know, outside of the YouTube videos. Just, again, we've got workmen in all the time, it's constant. We've still got calves popping out everywhere as well, so that's always fun. We've got some mums in the field beside our house, like literally over the fence. And because the sun's been shining the last few days, the calves are, you know, they're maybe between like a week and a week and a half old, and there's some newborns as well. And when the sun's shining, it seems to, it's like they're solar powered. And we were watching them yesterday, and they're just all running up and down the field, and the mothers are like frantically running after them, mooing. They're like, don't go too far, come back here, like the overprotective mother. Really, really funny. But they were having a great time. They're all cavorting round the field. It's nice to see them running about like that, having a good time. We call it when they've got their giddy knickers on. It's really funny because they stick their tails straight up, you know, they look like a flag flapping in the breeze. Oh, little flappy tails, they're so happy, it's nice. Make this a bit darker in here as well. It's funny, this year we've had some, well obviously these are our new cows in inverted commas, and the variety of calves is huge. They're still all Aberdeen Angus, so you know that's what we're used to anyway. But some of the calves have come out, and they're these wee tiny diddly wee things. I mean, they're like, you know, you could pick them up and carry them under your arm. And some of the, especially the bull calves, the male calves, they're absolutely gigantic, and they look more like a week-old calf rather than a newborn. And you're just like, geez, oh, and you think, poor cow, how did she manage to squeeze that out? But they all seems to be doing quite well. We had one that was a bit reluctant to get up. I think it was just a lazy newborn though, but I was quite concerned about it. And I'd phoned one of our workers who's here now, and I just said to him, I said, look, this cow's calved, the calf's not getting up. I'll keep an eye on it. So I kept going through to the sunroom and looking out the window just to make sure, to see if it had moved yet. And it just took it a little while to get going, but it was absolutely fine. But it's nice that I can do that from the house. So the days that I'm working, I can still keep an eye on the newborns. And if either Mr. Jem or one of our workers isn't about, I can just go out myself and check on it and make sure it's okay. So the underside of these ones, I want to stick to the darker colours. Again, just thinking if this is growing from the stalk outwards, maybe it doesn't take on the lighter colour until the cap's fully matured. I'm just making that up as I go along. I know nothing about mushrooms. So I'm going to skip out on the gold and the camel. Now the camel, as I said before, that was the base colour that I was using, and I'm going to use the raw umber as the base coat instead. So I'm just going to quick whip down a layer of this, not taking too much time over it. Again, not going for smooth even colour here because it's the underside of a mushroom or toadstool or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not bothered to sharpen my pencil there either, as you can see. It's actually easier to do this with a slightly rounded tip because you get less scratchy lines. But we're going to be building up so many layers here, it's not really of any consequence at this juncture. There we go. So now I've got the hazelnut, and just using a sort of flicky motion, I'm going to work my way round, but I am going to bring this quite far out to simulate what I mentioned a moment ago. Maybe just leave a sort of lighter band round the outside. I have found doing this, if I'm using that sort of flicking motion, I do have to go back into the start and just sort of fill in some gaps, but I kind of expected that as well, to be honest. Again, I'm not really putting any pressure on the pencil. I have found with this paper and the Artezas together, you are better to keep a light hand and use multiple layers. There is a tooth to the paper, but it's not particularly toothy, and with this being a sort of mid-firmness pencil, erring on the side of soft, you're better to just be patient, be light-handed, and you'll get there. I think if you were to use Prismacolors in here, you could probably mash down one layer, you know, be quite heavy-handed because you get that vibrancy from the Prismas. Not so much with the Artezas. If anybody has coloured some pages in here with the Prismacolor pencils, let me know in the comments and let me know how you've got on and see if my theory holds any water. It's always nice to know how other people are faring, because this is the first page that I've coloured in this, as I say, because a lot of you are really generous and have sent me colouring books. I have a long list of books, and I would like to colour at least one page in each of the ones that you've gifted and film it. I think that's only respectful and correct and polite, because it's books I would have wanted to buy anyway. So, right, I think down here we'll take this hazelnut all the way out to the edge. Again, thinking that, you know, it's kind of curved and it's like tucking in behind this stalk. So that's going to be a wee bit darker. So we'll give another layer. I'll just build this up a little bit in here. And do the same at this side. We still have the ash black pencil as well, which it creates a really nice depth over the top of this hazelnut. They seem to go really well together, so they seem to like to cooperate, which is really helpful. So I'm going to go back in now with the raw umber again. And just sort of blend out the edges of this hazelnut a little bit, make them less harsh. Start to bring a bit of warmth to this as well. Again, not pressing hard, no need to press hard. There we go. Okay, onto the ash black now, and I'm really focusing this on these parts down the side. So, still a flicky motion, but not quite as wayward, you know, we're not pushing it right out. We want to kind of focus that more in at that stalk. And I'm not really worrying about how uniform this is, because the underside of these things rarely are uniform. Sometimes you have to try and get that balance between what looks irregular and random and what just looks patchy and unfinished. And that can be a delicate balance to achieve sometimes. But again, I always find taking a step back and having a squint at it maybe 10 minutes later is really helpful with stuff like that. So you can see, because the hazelnut's already down, it's taken away some of the harshness of this ash black, which is good. And I'm just going to run a very light layer just round the very edge here. And making the edge kind of uneven again. I'm not going in a straight line all the way across, because it's going to seep into these edges. Again, something very subtle, but makes all the difference. Now we've got this kind of like the underside, you know, it's like where the rim is. And I'm going to sharpen my ash black up for this one. I want a really pointy point again. Pointy point. And I'm just following the line work there and sort of feathering the edge out. When I say feathering the edge, I'm just working in tiny little circles once I've put that initial line down, and it's just to soften it up a little bit. The same in here. So run the pencil along like this, and then... And I feel here the sun would be catching that, so there maybe wouldn't be quite as much of a shadow there. And we'll maybe start it in here. Again, like, I'm not doing this to an exact science, there's just no need. Hi, Jock! Because Mama Gem's here, the dogs aren't necessarily staying with me in the cave all the time when I'm doing things like this, but Jock has just meandered through. Have you come for a pet? Oh, I thought he was coming for a cuddle, but he's not. He's gone and sat in his little bed in his blanket. Jock is really, really unsettled with everything that's going on. He needs routine, and we've had issues with him, like separation anxiety issues, and I think there's just too much going on for him. And what happens when we leave him is he lifts his leg and piddles on things, like, and his favourite, he seems to have taken umbrage to the bin in the kitchen. I don't know why, but he likes to pee against that. So we have like a routine that we go through with him. We like leave the radio on and this kind of thing, and it's not working so well just now, but I kind of expected it after the move, so we're just doing our best to get him into a routine and make him feel as safe and happy as possible. It'll pass, he'll be okay. But it's a shame for him, because that's what I know, like, I know that he's stressed out, and that upsets me because I don't want my dogs to be stressed out, but he is. I think having all the workmen here with all the clattering and banging's not helping either, because he really doesn't like things like that either. He is a total pansy. He always has been. People say to me, he's not a pansy, he's just sensitive. I'm like, no, he's a pansy. There we go. So you can see this wee shadow's built up quite nicely now, and it's actually made me want to go back up here and make this one a bit more prominent. So I'm just going to do it while we're here. Yeah, that's better. I like that a lot better. I'm just really picking out the parts in at the creases, you know, where there's little chips out of the cup of the mushroom, toadstool mushroom. I actually think it looks better when you don't do it all the way around. It gives you more of a that irregular feel that we're looking for. Maybe it's just me. Okay, so down here now I'm just going to go with one more layer of the raw umber, and then I'll shift over to this other one. Again, not over the entire thing, just some of the areas, make them a bit richer. Maybe lean a wee bit heavier in some areas than others. This is one of these pictures where every time I look at it I see something else that I didn't see before. I'm like, oh, look at that. So same thing again, we've got the raw umber here, and get this base layer down. Now I'm going to have to sharpen it up because we've got some fiddly bits in here that we're going to have to deal with. So I'll just get as much of this down as I can with the sort of blunt pencil, and then we'll give it a sharpen. I mention this quite regularly because I'm aware that, you know, we seem to be consistently picking up new subscribers, and I don't know whether you're colourists or artists. My favoured pencil sharpener for my softer pencils, so Prismacolors and Artezas, is this Jingle multi sharpener, and it's got this little dial on it that you can turn, and it gives you different lengths of points on your pencils. And one of the things with soft core pencils is the shorter and stubbier the point is, the more stable it is, and you're less likely to get breakages because it is soft. And with the Jingle, a number 1 or 2 setting, it gives you this little stubby point, you know, rather than a long thin one that's liable to snap off, because it has more of the wood surrounding the core supporting the weight of the actual core itself. I've just said that and I've got a breakage. Ever the consummate professional. We'll try that again, shall we? Ah, geez. Anyway, they are good sharpeners. I like them. They're relatively cheap to pick up if you have access to Amazon. Now this is, oh my goodness, I'm just making a mess now. This is my third one in not quite 5 years. My first one just got really blunt, so I ordered another one and it seemed to be faulty. It was a pink one. Oh, I'll tell a lie, this is my fourth one. The pink one seemed to be faulty, and it wasn't sharpening anything at all. And I noticed a few other people around the same time had the same problem. So I got another one and it was perfect. It was grey, and I dropped it on my kitchen floor and it smashed in a million bits. So that was just delightful. And there was no repairing it. Mr. Jem had a look at it and he was like, yeah, Jem, this isn't fixable. So then I ordered this black one. And it seems to be absolutely fine. Right, that's better. Got there in the end. So I do recommend them if you are, especially if you are a user of softer pencils. They're very, very handy. I do use them for other pencils as well, and it's good to run a graphite pencil through them just every now and then, because it helps keep the blade a bit brighter and stops the build up of the softer pencil. But I think my first one that ran its full course, you know, until the blade was really, really dull, I think I had it well over a year and I was using it a lot. I was colouring a lot at that point, so I can highly recommend them if you're in the market for a pencil sharpener for your Artezas or your Prismacolors. I've missed a tiny bit of blue in there as well. What am I going to do with that? I'll just try and squeeze it in. Oh, there we go. No harm done. Righty ho, so we've got hazelnut again. I'm going to have to be a bit more careful here. I'm in love with this flag. I like it because it's long and twirly, but also because it's got one of the wee toadstools on it. It's just adorable. Just take our time along here. Yeah. There's another blue bit in here as I've missed loads of it. This is the danger with these pictures. Sometimes it's difficult to determine what belongs to what object as well. I've found that quite a few times in books like this, and you just have to sort of figure it out as you go along. But in such a tiny area like that, it's not really an issue because it's not going to be, you know, really noticeable if you do attach it to the wrong object. I've seen myself sometimes consulting Mr. Jem because when I'm colouring for myself, it's usually later on at night, you know, it's after we've had dinner and one thing and another, and we're usually settled, and I'll plod through to the lounge. I'll be like, Mr. Jem, what do you think this is? Where does that go? And he'll give me a second pair of eyes. He's very helpful with things like that, though. He also tells me if something doesn't look right. Or sometimes I'll ask him to suggest, you know, what colour would spring to mind for something if I don't have any ideas myself. He's very good with stuff like that. I don't always agree with what he suggests, but he's usually quite good at giving suggestions. Sometimes as well, the other thing he's good for is when we get the subscription boxes, you know, like the Upgrade and the Scroller box. If I'm looking at the prompt and I've maybe got one or two ideas in my head, but I'm not really fixed on anything, I'll go through and ask him what the first thing comes to mind. And he reels off like a gajillion suggestions. And more than half of them are absolutely impractical and not something that I would do. But the other half are usually quite good, or at least lead me to pick something for myself, if that makes sense. So yes, he's very helpful. So I've got this ash now, and I'm more or less just going to cover all this in because we've got this little flower and these wee funny, I suppose they're leaves, aren't they? These wee furly things. And they're kind of covering up most of it, so we'll just leave it at that, I think. I might go back and put in cast shadows from these things, you know, that are overlapping, but I'll do that at the end. I don't want to busy the picture up too much if I can help it, but we shall see. A bit more of this down here. Again, I feel like in this corner it's going to be a lot darker. And then just back to my raw umber again. I just want to pop a tiny wee bit of this raw umber down. It feels a bit bare there. Okay, that'll do for now. I'm quite happy with that, I think. Next, we need to pick colours for our stalks. I would quite like to get them filled in, and I'm thinking a sort of yellowish tone, but I want it to be far enough away from the colours we've used in the cup so that they don't kind of like merge into each other. So I'm just having a look. I do have my swatch book here, and this is the sort of lighter Arteza colours here. So I think, just have a look. I think we'll stick with the turmeric because that'll help tie in with what I've done up here. But I'll maybe use that as the darkest colour rather than the warmest, lightest colour. So we'll try cream and jasmine yellow, I think. Or ivory if you're working on the old set. Yeah, I think we'll use these as our starting colour. So cream, which is A150. I probably better just point them out here. A150, jasmine yellow or ivory, which is A075. And then the turmeric that we had before, which is A077. And we can use that as a starting point and see how we get on. Quite a lot of you have been commenting and asking how I choose colours and colour schemes for things, and I've been asked enough times now that I'm going to do a video on it. So that will be coming probably in the next month or so. And I will put it in the playlist for colouring for beginners. I was looking at having a last video for that playlist because I felt that a dozen videos was enough to be getting on with, and 11 just doesn't sit right with me. But I wasn't just going to add in a video for the sake of it. So after many times and suggestions, that's what I'm going to do, because there's kind of two ways I approach it, and I'd like to talk about them in a little bit more detail and have a video dedicated to that, because it's something that new colourists seem to struggle with quite a lot, is actually picking the colours for themselves. So we shall be addressing that. The other thing that's going to be coming in the next couple of months is I'm going to do a similar series, but it's going to be drawing for beginners. So the same thing, really basic, absolute beginner, novice type instruction to get people started. So if that's something that you've been interested in maybe pursuing, maybe you are a colourist and you'd like to start drawing, or maybe you just like to sit and watch my channel for fun and fancy giving it a go, that'll be something that I'll be addressing as well in the next, probably I would say, I'm going to say month and a half, that's fair. So there we go, something exciting to look forward to. So I've got the cream, which is our lightest colour. I think I'm going to start with the ivory. And I'm just going to start over here. Normally I would start with the lightest colour, but with it being the cream, I kind of want to use that to almost highlight things or lighten up areas rather than have it as the base colour. So that's why I'm starting with this ivory or sapphire yellow, whichever you would like to call it, because we are working with really pale colours here. I haven't even thought about what colours I'm going to do window frames or anything like that. With a page this detail, I would rather just go one thing at a time. It's not the type of page that you would use a limited colour palette on either. There's just too much going on for that, so one item at a time. It's a rather snazzy looking bug sitting here, isn't it? With these big fancy antennae. So thinking about this as a curvature, so it's curving away from us. If we have darker edges round here and gradiate in towards the middle, that gives that illusion of a curve. I don't think I want it to be shiny, but what I'm going to do is just down this section here with the cream pencil, and you can see it going down on top of the ivory, which is great. I'm just going to mark out a section here. So it's kind of giving me a stop line really, I suppose. And I've got my turmeric here now, and I'm going to start down this edge. So thankfully the window kind of cuts off this first section, so that'll allow me just to work in this one square, well, oblong, and blend these two colours together. Sometimes it's easier to work in smaller sections like this. I certainly find it easier. And we just want to build this up really gradually. And we'll bring this into that mid-tone. When we're doing sections like this, we just need to be really patient and build these up and blend them together very gently and very gradually until you've got a nice solid wall of colour and that nice gradient that we're looking for. So I want to go a step down. This is too pale for my liking. It does look a lot lighter on the camera. Again, that is just the light balance on the camera because it's quite dark in here today. But if I go back to my swatch book, see what we've got. So that was turmeric. I'm actually going to go down to Tuscan Sun. I was going to go yellow ochre, but again it's very close to the turmeric. So let's go Tuscan Sun and see how that goes. I'm loving these colour names. And I only want to use this around this right hand edge. And maybe along the top here a little bit. And again, thinking about the direction of that light, there will probably be a cast shadow from this window frame as well. And it's going to be quite a straight, steady line because it's, you know, because of the structure of it. So I'm really pressing hard here. And then I can just take this mid-tone again. And I'll just blend out that edge very slightly. Oh, Mama Gem's on the move. I can hear her rumbling about. Now I want to take like an orangey brown colour, so let me see what we've got here. Perhaps this ginger, A122. This yellow looks positively day glow on the monitor, it's really not. And I just want to put a little bit of texture in here, so really lightly. And I'm just going to put in a few little lines. I say nothing drastic, but I'm going to zoom in a bit. Hopefully you'll be able to see them. You can just see them and no more. And again, it's just to add texture and interest to what we're doing. I don't want it to be completely flat. And I might even, where this joins onto the cup, I might just add in a few more there. Yep, okay, I'm happy with that. That's good. So we'll move on to this other side. I might just stay zoomed in at this level actually. So bearing in mind I've got this kind of lighter patch here, so first of all I'm going to take this ivory and just fill in up to that point. Blend that together. Good stuff. And then go back to my turmeric. Now we may have quite a lot of dark areas here, and you can see that Tomislav has actually put in some hatching round the outside of this bug, so that's indicating to me that there is a shadow there, which makes perfect sense. It's very logical. And this section may be a lot darker than one would normally go for just because of this beetle or whatever he is. He looks like a beetle. Does he look like a beetle? You tell me. I'll bring that turmeric to maybe about there. And then I can go back to my ivory. Blend this in with the cream. That gives us a nice base. Now when you're working in sections like this, it's important to step back and make sure that you're even between the sections, because that can sometimes go amiss. So I'm just going to, for my own sanity, I'm popping in this cast shadow just now because I may forget about it. So again, the sun kind of coming from this direction, so he's going to cast a little shadow on this side, even if it's just a teeny weeny wee bit here and there. Yeah. I'll just stick with this Tuscan sun and get this nice and rich in here. And then back to my turmeric. Maybe just run a wee bit along that top edge, nothing drastic. And then I've got this ginger again, nice and sharp. And just start putting in these wee lines. Now I'm trying to go with the lean of the stalk because it's not straight. And that's just, it's such a nice wee characteristic that's been added in, and I think it's something that really gives these images, you know, that just a little bit of personality. So yeah, it's a mushroom or a toadstool, but it's kind of having a wee jaunty lean. Maybe it just decided when it was growing up that it was wanting to be that little bit further away from the one next to it, I don't know. When I'm doing this, I'm trying really hard to keep the pressure even, you know, when I'm putting these strokes in. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but I think we're okay. You're better to press too light than too hard when you're doing stuff like this. Okay, I'm super happy with that. Maybe just chucking pencils about. Just pop a wee bit of that in there. I think I'll add a bit more Tuscan sun down here. Move on to this larger section now. I'm going to have to zoom out for this because it's much bigger. And I'm literally just going to do the same thing again. So, because this is all in one section, I'm going to pick out this highlight first with the cream. And it's probably going to come down. Again, just thinking about the angle, this isn't as angled as much though, so that's a bit of a pain. But it's going to be somewhere down here. It's almost like a placeholder rather than actually being colour, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense or not. It's just like a marker or an indicator to help. Oh, look at this little door down here, that's cute. And that's going to be pretty dark in there because there's all sorts going on there. So it's probably going to be lighter up here than it is down the bottom as well. So not only are we thinking about the dark part at the sides, but we've got to think about it at the bottom as well. Right, let's whack down some ivory. Start over here. Oh, here's Woo. Hi, Woo. She's awake. Since Mama Jem arrived, Woo has literally been like surgically attached to her because she's spending a lot of time sitting on the sofa with her leg up. Woo's just going in beside her and crawling under a blanket and just basking in the glory of body heat. She's quite funny. I hope I can do that when I get old. That would be great. Got all these itty bitty bits to do in here as well. I imagine these will all be much darker. But again, it helps my brain make sense of what's attached to what, you know, it's not just a sort of rabble of white lines. So I find this quite helpful. Now I think that this is the edge of the toadstool here. Again, if I zoom in a little bit, I'll make you see better. See, there's this line here, and I think that's the edge of it. Yeah, because there's it curves around the bottom. Okay, good. Glad we sorted that out. And that'll be wood there, so this will be... Do you see what I mean? It takes a bit of sorting out to decide what belongs to which part of the drawing. Pip's now got her chin on my knee. What is it, Pippy? What is it? Just give me the face. Just getting the face. It's quite a large area. There are these little spots here, so before I do anything else I want to take the Tuscan Sun and just fill them in because I would like them to stand out once I've sort of added everything in. I'm going to go outside the lines a little bit. I'm such a rebel. And I'll maybe even sort of half join them together. I will blend these edges out with the other pencils, but I just wanted to do that while I'm here anyway. So thinking about this, I'm going to start... I've missed a whole load of sections. There's these bits of the steps. Okay, I think that's me this time. So this, for me, this is the easier side anyway. So I'm taking my turmeric and I'm going to start in here. And I imagine that this is going to be quite dark, so I'm just going to do this section just now. So again, this is the Tuscan Sun. Get this all the way down the edge. And blend it out with this turmeric. Yep, that looks good to me. Now the situation with the steps down here, I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to tackle this. As I say, I think most of it will be quite dark. So I'm going to put a layer of the turmeric down first, I think. And that'll be fine. I think what we'll do is once I finish this stock, we'll have to stop there because this video is going to be well over an hour. Yeah, we're just on an hour now, so by the time I edit out a few random background noises and things, we shouldn't be too far off an hour. I nearly coloured in the wrong part there. Yeah, so I think we'll do that, and the other stock I will do in my own time because I'll be doing it exactly the same way as I'm doing this, so there's no point in doing that twice. And we can maybe look at some of the more intricate parts of the toadstool next time round, or the surroundings. I really want to colour in this flag. I'm really excited about this flag. Simple things yet again. Always, always. Yeah, this is all going to be quite dark in here. I want to try and not lose the idea of this curvature though. So I'm going to do quite a few layers of turmeric rather than using the Tuscan Sun. You know, to darken it down a little bit. There's going to be quite a heavy cast shadow down this bottom part here. But it's kind of going to be in shadow anyway, so maybe not, I don't know. This is where I'm starting to confuse myself a little bit. I think I'll leave that as is just now, you know, underneath these steps here. And we'll just move on up to the turmeric. We'll get this section going. And this is going to come quite far out. We're kind of matching it up with what's going on here. So yeah. See, I'm just going over that where I'd put in those little spots before, just going straight over the top of it. And this is me heading near to the cream now, so I want to switch back to the ivory, just so we can get a wee bit of a gradient. In this section here. I'm trying to stick with the up and down because that's the grain, you know, the little pattern that we put in with the ginger up the top. So keep pencil strokes going up and down. A little bit more difficult when you get to things like this that are in your way, but it is doable. I'll grab this Tuscan Sun now. And all I have to do is match this up with what's going on underneath. Bring that a little bit further out, why not? So my plans for the rest of today, they're terribly exciting. I have a bathroom to clean. So I'm going to do that. And got to take the dog's OUT. We still haven't done that yet. Obviously it's still early, so. And I have some washing to do. Isn't my life terribly, terribly exciting? I also need to wait and see how my granary loaves turned out. So that'll be an interesting escapade later on, I think. So down the bottom here, I'm kind of like trying to stop in line with this window just until I've got the colours right. But there's going to be a lot of this Tuscan Sun down here. So I'm going to keep a light hand because I'm going to have to put quite a bit of ginger over this as well. But we need to get this darkened down somewhat. Again, this is what I was saying earlier about thinking about the fact that it's the base. So it's probably going to be a slightly different colour to the rest of the stock. Oh, my bread machine's away again. I really hope the mic isn't picking that up. It is really far away, but this mic seems to be really sensitive. It picks up a lot of things that I don't think it would pick up. So let's switch to the turmeric now, and we can kind of match this bottom section to what's going on up there. I'm only bringing that to maybe there, but from the bottom here, thinking about a gradient from the bottom up, I'm going to bring this a little bit further up and over to maybe about here. And then just back in with this ivory. And there's me joining up to my cream again. And on this side, I think it's going to be a lot more subtle. So this Tuscan Sun, I need to do turmeric first. Come on, Jem. It's only literally going to be like a line of the Tuscan Sun. Again, just because of the aforementioned light source that I have decided to go with. Can be a bit more liberal down the bottom here again. My turmeric. The other thing that I've really got to do today as well is I went to the supermarket back when it was like sensible and okay to go to a supermarket, and I picked out a couple of bits of wonky veg to sketch just as an exercise, and I haven't quite got around to it and they're starting to decay quite badly. So I need to get them sketched before they start to disintegrate and smell, so that I will have to do that today. And Mama Jem's been laughing at me because I've been saying it every day for about 3 days. I really need to sketch that sweet potato. So that is one thing I am doing today, that is happening. So that will also be posted on Instagram once I'm finished as well. So yes, if you're interested. I'm just going to sharpen up my Tuscan Sun now. And I want to put in these cast shadows, or some of them at least, again, just to sort of keep myself right for later on more than anything. I just want a really light one down the side of this window. Maybe pop that in there. And there might be a touch of a shadow there. Okay, so let's get going with the ginger now. This is really fun, like this is a fun part. Oh, that was a wonky line, but never mind. There'll be less in this highlighted part, they'll still be there, but they won't be as obvious, I don't think. I just don't think that would feel right. And I do want them more concentrated at this top edge as well. And they don't have to be completely straight, you know, don't get too hung up on it. We're just adding interest and texture here. Again, it's not a major feature unless you go absolutely ham and your stock's going to look like a pair of stripy pyjamas. That's a different story. Just go with the flow. Enjoy it a little bit. A little bit of freedom. There we go. Right, we're going to zoom out now, show you the full thing. Ooh. And there we have it, that's us finished for today. I'm quite pleased with how this is coming along. So as I said earlier, I will do this other stock in my own time, and when we come back next time we can tackle something else and try out some more of these Arteza pencils. So I just want to thank you very much for watching. I hope you're having a relaxing day, and we shall see you back in the cave on Sunday for another video. Have a great day everyone, and bye for now.